Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our NCRI-US office. The religious dictatorship ruling Iran pursued a nuclear bomb project known as the Ahmad Plan until 2003. This plan was halted after the exposure of the Lavizan-Shian site in May 2003 by the National Council of Resistance of Iran. That site served as the nerve center for the regime's nuclear weapons program. It was sometimes believed that after the Ahmad Plan was shut down, the regime did not resume its bomb-making efforts, and that its nuclear activities were focused solely on uranium enrichment. However, the Iranian resistance knew well from the beginning that the regime had not abandoned its bomb project. We know well that People's Mujahideen Organization of Iran tell the world every day that Iranian regime has not dismantled its bomb project. Now, the People's Mujahideen Organization of Iran has obtained new information from inside Iran that reveals the details of the regime's continued nuclear weapons project. This new plan that we are revealing today is called the Kavir Plan, new Kavir Plan. This work on the Kavir Plan started in 2009 on the personal order of Ali Khamenei, the regime's supreme leader. And we're going to present today details of this conference. As our past 4 conferences, as well as the comprehensive IAEA report of May 31st, 2025, it demonstrated, after years of investigation, the regime's nuclear project has pursued no goal other than the production of nuclear weapons from the very, very beginning. This is the fact that the Iranian resistance has emphasized for 3 decades. The regime has never reported any of its activities to the IAEA voluntarily. Instead, they were all exposed most prominently by the NCRI and the PMI MEK network from inside Iran. And only then the regime admitted and then rebuffed it. The regime's approach to the international community regarding its nuclear activities over 3 decades can be described as concealment, deception, delaying, and destruction of the evidence. Tehran has done everything to hide its relentless effort to acquire nuclear weapons. Nuclear weapons are the regime's life insurance policy and remains one of the stalling and delaying to prevent decisive action while moving forward with its weapons program. The time has come to end this cycle. The regime's threat to global peace and stability is not limited to the activities of Iranian regime on nuclear program. The genocide inside Iran, which is confirmed by the UN Special Rapporteur, and the terrorism and warmongering necessitates the mullah's regime is at its most fragile state, facing an explosive society since Masoud appointed as the regime's president in August. More than 1,300 prisoners, including even women political prisoners, were executed. Many right now are an imminent risk of execution. Regionally, the regime is at its weakest point in 4 decades, making it more desperate. than ever to rely on development of nuclear weapons program. A realistic response to this regime and its threat must include the following measures. One, the snapback mechanism must be immediately triggered, reinstating all UN Security Council resolutions related to the regime's nuclear program and reimposing all sanctions before it expires in October of this year, 2025. Uranium enrichment must be completely and permanently dismantled. All of the regime's nuclear sites must be shut down and dismantled, which the IAEA inspectors must verify. Tehran's missile program, an integral part of the nuclear warhead, must be eliminated. No nuclear sites, military or civilian, should be exempt from intrusive snap inspections in order to close them down. We have always emphasized, experience has proven that the solution to the regime's nuclear and its terror threat, it is overthrow by the Iranian people and their organized resistance, MEK, inside Iran. As NCRI President-elect Mrs. Maryam Rajavi emphasized in her US Congress testimony earlier this year, there is no need for foreign boots on the ground or appropriation of any money or using taxpayer dollars. The international community must recognize the rights of the Iranian people to confront the IRGC and end this religious dictatorship. A democratic, non-nuclear Republic of Iran is entirely within reach, as articulated in Mrs. Maryam Rajavi's 10-point plan for the transitional period in Iran. Now I will ask my colleague, Mr. Jafarzadeh, to come and explain different aspects of this new Kavir Plan and different projects involved. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Alireza Jafarzadeh, and I'm the Deputy Director of the Washington office of the National Council of Resistance of Iran. Welcome to our office. And I want to say a few things in the beginning before we start our press conference. First, I want to say that anyone who has any questions, they need to send their inquiries to email media@ncri-us.org, media@ncri-us.org. And also, I want to talk about the source of the information. As we have done it in the past, the NCRI's Defense and Strategic Research Committee has obtained and compiled this information based on what they have received from inside Iran network of the main Iranian opposition movement, the People's Mujahideen Organization of Iran, also known as the PMOI or MEK. Of course, you know, they've been reliable in the past, as much of the knowledge the world now has come from those sources, as some of the examples are around the room here in the conference room. And of course, they've been compiled from dozens of sources inside Iran. So having said that, let me just get into the details of what we are going to reveal today. We're going to uncover a new plan that we have recently discovered that the Iran regime has been pursuing to develop nuclear weapons, known as Kavir Plan. Kavir means desert. So the Kavir Plan has actually replaced the old known exposed plan known as Ahmad Plan to develop nuclear weapons. Since 2009, the Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei has significantly enhanced the Iranian regime's nuclear weapons development program. And I will get into the details of that. Now, the new project to develop nuclear weapons has actually been pursued under the cover of the securing the Kavir, and is actually codenamed, as I said, Kavir Plan. Now, having said that, let's get into some of the details. They have designated the desert region in the southern part of Semnan province for this purpose. It also extends to some sections of the desert that extends to provinces of Tehran and Qom province. Here is the map of Iran. I couldn't fit the whole thing, but you can see here the boundaries of Iran. And there are two desert areas marked here, the Dasht Kavir and the Kavir Lut or Dasht Lut. Dasht Kavir is actually the largest desert area in the whole country, and it's even larger than the well-known Lut Kavir, Lut Desert, and it engulfs several provinces. Here's the map of the provinces. You can see this is Semnan province. This is Tehran province. This is Alborz. This is Qom province. This is Isfahan. And this is part of Khorasan province. Now, in this province, Semnan is one of the larger provinces of the country. The fifth largest province of the country is actually Semnan province. A good portion of the province is actually desert. 60% of Semnan is desert, making it perfectly fit for the kind of project that they want to pursue. And here's a larger image of the Semnan province. And in this map that is compiled based on the information that we have gotten from inside the Iranian regime, these regions that are identified here with different colors are actually the way that they are viewed in Iran by the regime. The whole province of Semnan was declared in 2009 by the Iranian regime as a military province. Keep that date in mind. 2009 is so significant because a whole host of activities have actually started from 2009 that has led to what we're exposing today as the Kavir Plan. Now, on this map, you can see the zones are colored in different colors. Some are colored with red, and some are colored with yellow zone, and some blue zone. The red color zones are actually the zones that are considered to be military zones, and there are no civilian access provided to the red zones on the map, as you can see here. And even those who want to have access here, they need to have the clearance from the state security forces, the IRGC, the various intelligence organizations before they can enter it. And it consists of a large portion of the whole province. About 9% of the whole province of Semnan is actually considered and marked as red zone. Then you have the yellow zone. The yellow areas, as you can see them marked there, are actually the zones that are under military control. They're designated for artillery, for missile firing. It's a no-fly zone also. And the entrance to this area requires a special permission. About 27% of the whole province, according to regime's own sources, is actually the yellow zone. And then the blue zone, this is where actually civilian access is permitted in the blue zone. However, about half of that so-called blue zone is actually controlled in other ways by, they're like environmental protection areas or wildlife and, hunting and all of that. So there's still control on the other parts of the zone, the Semnan province, even though they're blue zone. Now, let's get into the regions that we're going to be focusing on today. The region 1, which is the red zone here, is the region where Rangin Kaman site is located there. This is the site that we first exposed back in May, that the SEPAND organization, which is the organization that oversees all of the nuclear-related activities, was actually located there. And then zone number 2, or regions number 2, is the Qadir site, which is the site that actually basically the radar anti-aircraft missile for the region, which is for the protection of other nuclear sites that I mentioned earlier. Then you have region 3. It's called the Iraj 1 site complex. This is in the city of Semnan, or the vicinity of the city of Semnan, where they actually have missile sites. It's known to be for missile sites, but we talked about it earlier, that they are actually, this is the place that they have liquid fuel Seymour missiles that is part and parcel of their nuclear weapons program. It's under control of the Ministry of Defense, heavily controlled by SEPAND, which is the entity that develops nuclear weapons. And then region 4 is the Imam Reza Training Center, which is situated in the Shahrud missile site. And we also exposed that, talked about it partially in May, that it's basically built for the development of the Qaem 100 missile, which is a solid fuel, and they cover that under launching satellite and all of that. But in fact, that's part and parcel of the nuclear warhead launching of the regime. And then you have the regions 5, 6, and 7 that are basically the Semnan Air Defense Complex, the Hashemi-Nejad Logistic Base, the IRGC's 10th Muharram Air Defense Unit. So having said that, let's take a look at the bigger picture, the different components of the Kavir Plan. You notice at the center of this plan is the SEPAND organization. This is the organization that we first exposed in July of 2011 right here in Washington. It appeared in the comprehensive report of the IAEA in November 2011. It was designated by the US government in August of 2014. So it took 3 years for the State Department to designate it, but they finally did on their, as being involved in, proliferation activities. Now, these are the sites that, or entities that are associated with the Kavir Plan. To the best of our knowledge today, this may not be a complete picture of the whole thing, but these are the elements that we have found so far as part and parcel of the Kavir Plan, which has replaced the Ahmad Plan. Now, you can see the, I mentioned some of that earlier, the Shahrud side that they were working on Qaem 100 solid fuel, the Semnan side that they were working on, Seymour missile with the liquid fuel, and A1K site near Gamsar, involved in various parts of nuclear weapons program. The Sanjarian site we first exposed in 2009. They put it on pause for a while, but they reactivated last year, and we talked about it, that there's been working on detonators, the EBWs, explosive bridge wire, a necessary component for building the bomb, and also the Sorkh-Esar site, the underground testing and geophysics, and finally the Parchin site, the Plant 6, that works in conjunction with Sanjarian site, working on explosive, high explosive testing. Now, this is the picture that we have of the Kavir Plan that has actually replaced the old exposed Ahmad plan. Now, let me just see if I can show you on the map the various places that we talked about. We talked about Semnan province, the various locations on the Semnan province, especially the 4 sites related to the Kavir Plan. And this is site number 1, A1K. And also the second one, the deals the Qadir site that provides the radar protection for site 1 or region 1. This is the third one in Semnan that is involved in launching, in building actually nuclear warheads. This is Shahrud, where they're working on Qaim 100. And again, back to this program. And then here's the headquarters of Sepand that we talked about. This is in the Noor building in Tehran. We exposed this place a few years ago, but that remains the headquarters, the main component of coordinating all of the activities related to nuclear weaponization, but specifically acts as the core for the Kavir Plan. Now, let's talk about some of the counterintelligence measures that we have found out the regime has been doing on the ground to protect the Kavir plan. They have created a Kavir security unit, which is established by state security forces. And everyone knows that state security forces are actually controlled by the Iranian Revolutionary Guards. In 2010, and remember those dates, 2009, 2010, all of those activities around that time, they didn't just happen by themselves. They're all related as part of this larger plan. The IRGC actually set up Sahib al-Zaman intelligence base to actually gather intelligence in the area. You would think that the desert area would have very little interest. After all, it's a desert. But at the highest level of security and monitoring is exerted in the Semnan province. Now, for the whole region, the IRGC intelligence organization has been involved on the ground. The Ministry of Intelligence and Security, MIS, is heavily involved there in Semnan. The counterintelligence division of the Ministry of Defense that works hand in hand with Sepand is involved, and also the intelligence division of state security forces are involved in a desert area. If you look up on the map, you look at the pictures, there's nothing you can see there. Yet this level of intelligence and involvement of all the security agencies of the Iran regime under the specific order and command of Supreme Leader Khamenei is very telling. Now, in terms of monitoring, they're doing light, reconnaissance aircrafts are being used there. They're using drones to monitor the situation. They use actually facial recognition cameras that are mounted on drones that are used in that part of Semnan. And also their satellite equipment and satellite surveillance also used to monitor the whole situation there. Now, there was a special directive by the Supreme Leader Khamenei, as we've seen a lot of internal documents constantly referring to the Supreme Leader and his directive, that the special interest of the regime is the movement of foreign nationals, foreign individuals who may be showing up in the area that they are particularly monitored there. There's intensified surveillance on American and European tourists who actually travel for different purposes, whether it's scientific research, whether it's wildlife conservation, environmental protection. All kinds of interests exist. Any foreign national who pursues those objectives are closely monitored. And actually, the IRGC intelligence organization has consistently arrested and interrogated foreign nationals regarding, what's the purpose, what they're doing there. going deep into the details of all of that, making it very clear that, why the regime is so heavily involved in protecting the intelligence about their Kavir Plan. Now, let's go back to Ahmad Plan, because the reason I go back and forth between Kavir Plan and Ahmad Plan, because the Ahmad Plan was the original plan to build the bomb. It was initiated in 1999 to build 5 nuclear warheads. The original plan was to mount them on Shahab 3 missiles. And this project, later on, it became known that it was called the Ahmad Plan, based on the documentations that later on appeared. Under the Ahmad Plan, there were separate roles. One was the Atomic Energy Organization of Iran, which supposedly does civilian work. They deal with, nuclear energy, the Bushehr plant, and, research and all of that. So they agreed that they would, remain focusing on uranium enrichment up to 3%, yet the Ministry of Defense would conduct enrichment up to 90%. So there were like 2 different lines pursued, one developing nuclear weapons, the other one, staying within the boundaries. And now, some 400 specialists from the Atomic Energy Organization of Iran throughout these years gradually were transferred from the Atomic Energy Organization to the Ministry of Defense, doing research and just expanding and building the different instruments and entities for the Ministry of Defense. And of course, Lavizan-Shian became actually the command center for this project. Now, Lavizan-Shian, as you noticed in the graph that I showed, became like the core of the Ahmad Plan. Now, Lavizan-Shian, we first, this is actually the graph here, right at the center. And then all of these different components, by now, they are known, some of which we exposed, some of which were exposed through various processes, and some of which became under the investigation of the Atomic Energy, International Atomic Energy Agency, for instance, the Fordo site, that they use very advanced centrifuges under the mountains. We first exposed it in 2005 in a press conference, but it took 4 years before others jumped in and started talking about it, and it came under the attention. Believe it or not, some of the enrichment to 60% enrichment are actually taking place in Fordo, under the mountains, well protected. This was part of the Ahmad Plan. The Sanjarian site, which we first exposed, so many other sites that you can see here. All of these things are now known after years, because what we did when we first exposed Lavizan-Shian in 2003, obviously we didn't know about the Ahmad Plan. No one knew about the Ahmad Plan. We knew it was related to nuclear development of nuclear weapons. And then the IAEA got interested. They immediately wanted to go there, especially because they had seen what we had done since a year before, Natanz, the Iraq, and Kala Electric, and all the other sites. And the regime started playing, delay and tactic and playing games, cat and mouse. Eventually, they allowed the IAEA in June of 2004. So from May 2003 to June of 2004, that's what, 13 months. And by the time the IAEA went there, they realized everything was raised, and they had even removed the soil. This is the original site of Lavizan-Shian when we first exposed it. This is the satellite imagery of just a few months after our revelation. You can see all the buildings and everything there. And this is how it looked like in March of 2004, just 3 months before the IAEA went there. All the buildings are raised, the soil was removed. And then this is actually how it looks like in December 2005. Nevertheless, the IAEA took samples of whatever was left there, and the regime was confident they've cleaned up the whole place. Well, This is where the IAEA found traces of highly enriched uranium. And these are one of the centers of contention between the IAEA and the regime as we speak today. The recent report that was released by the IAEA in late May of 2025, just a few days ago, last week actually, that report highlights 4 sites that they say that the regime was in non-compliance, that they were doing activities that they were not supposed to do, including activities that relate to building the bomb, and also nuclear material that were missing. The number 1 site listed in the IAEA report is actually the Lavizan-Shian site, which, as I said, we exposed earlier. And so you can understand how when we exposed the Lavizan-Shian, which was the core of the whole program, that became like a chain reaction of all the other information that just came out, and the regime basically had to halt the Ahmad plan because nothing was working, and they were already being exposed. They were already under a lot of pressure. They just wanted to, consolidate everything. So that led to the perception as though that the halting of the Ahmad plan equals halting the nuclear weapons program of the regime. It was not. So that's why many people had this perception, even among the intelligence community, different experts and others. And the regime actually had an interest in disseminating this perception that, yes, maybe they were doing, thinking about it, maybe there were some elements were doing something before, but that's not what we're doing right now. And so the reality actually was exactly the opposite. We had a lot of bits and pieces of the information showing that the regime was continuing the work on the nuclear weapons program, but until now that we found out about the Kavir Plan, basically it just gave a totally different picture about the nuclear weapons program of the regime. There is a plan, and not only a replacement for the Ahmad plan, but this plan is further enhanced, much more expansive, much more sophisticated, a much higher level of protection and security for the site. They have very plausible cover for that. They have the best regions that they could possibly have in order to develop the whole plan. The Kavir Plan is actually, therefore, has become the nerve center of the program of the Iran regime, making it very clear that the nuclear weapons program of the Iran regime was never halted. It was only escalated, elevated from the old exposed original Ahmad plan to the advanced, Kavir Plan, the desert plan. Now, let me just say a few words and putting things into context. I think this revelation today is extremely significant because it will put an end to a lot of the speculations that the regime was pushing around and spreading everywhere, that they have not made a decision to develop nuclear weapons. They don't have a nuclear weapons. Everything is peaceful. Everything is related to nuclear energy and all of that. Yet this information shows that since 2009, all of the activities have significantly shifted. And I can give you a lot of other information and evidence that how since 2009 things have shifted. And then the same way that Lavizan-Shian was the heart of the Ahmad plan, Sepand is the heart of the Kavir Plan. And that's why it's so important to call for shutting down all of the nuclear sites of Iran. I think the world should not waste time in, going back and forth. It took 20 years for the IAEA to ask questions and ask about the sources of, traces of highly enriched uranium in Lavizan-Shian, and eventually they gave up. They basically said Tehran is never going to answer to them, and saying this issue is not resolved, but we're just going to basically give up on that one. And the same situation with all the other sites. So the role of the IAEA should be basically to monitor the closure of all of the sites of the Iranian regime, because there's no peaceful purpose for any of those. And obviously, given the experience of the past and knowing the nature of the Iranian regime, knowing the role that the nuclear program of the Iranian regime, nuclear weapons program, plays in the survival of the regime is going to stick to their program. They want to maintain their nuclear weapons program. So the only sure way to end the nuclear threat of Iran is to end the rule of the clerics in Iran. Of course, that's the responsibility of the people of Iran and the organized resistance. We're not asking anyone. We're not asking for foreign boots on the ground or appropriation of money, and none of that. Just recognize the right of the people of Iran in their desire to bring about change in the country. Now, having said that, let me just conclude here and see if you have any questions. Let's give the priority to the journalists who are here. There are microphones around, and please identify yourself when you pose your question. And yes, anyone interested? There's a microphone right here.
Thanks. This is John Bowden with The Independent.
Yes.
Yeah, so what do you make of the newfound willingness of the regime to talk with the Trump administration? Do you attribute that to new economic factors or political factors within Iran, or do you attribute that more to the new stance of the U.S. administration? And then I have a follow-up.
Sure. Well, I think the Iranian regime decision to come to the negotiating table is not out of choice, rather out of desperation. The regime is in deep trouble inside the country. We didn't talk about it today, but there have been, rounds and rounds of major uprisings in Iran. People wanting an end to the rule of the clerics. The regime has had really no choice but to step up repression. Some 1,300 executions of prisoners in Iran since Pezeshkian took office, since last August. The economy is in shambles, as you mentioned. The currency of Iranian rial has almost plummeted to half since Pezeshkian took office. Inflation is high. There's no solution that the regime has for the economic problems. And therefore, they want to see how in the world they can actually maintain the program, maintain the nuclear weapons program by getting involved in the talks, dragging it, keeping, holding to their positions on the enrichment and all of those things, and see what happens, hoping that the outside world will buckle under the stubbornness of the regime as they had done in the past. And they're hoping that the same thing that happened in 2003 after we made the revelation of Natanz, that the negotiations started. At that time, it was EU3 with Iran, and then 2015, hoping that the same thing could revive.
And then my follow-up is the most recent reporting we have of the new concessions that the regime is offering are U.S. inspectors at the nuclear sites and enrichment taking place outside of Iran in foreign countries. Number one, do you see those as serious offers by the regime? And number two, do you think they would be effective measures to counter the sites and the plan that you outlined today?
Well, first of all, in terms of the inspections, it's not the nationality of inspectors. It's the approach that the Iranian regime has made to the IAEA. And it's nothing new since 2003 when the inspections started until today. If you look at the latest report by the IAEA, and by the way, they put just a small portion of what they actually have in their IAEA reports. the trend has been basically lying, dragging, not responding, and obfuscation, just playing games, never answering any of the key questions related to their what they call PMD, possible military dimensions, or the weaponization part of the program, especially since 2008, 2009, when the new plan was into place. Look at the approach that the regime made towards the IAEA. I remember there were agreements by the Iran regime to allow the IAEA inspectors in a higher level in 2008, late 2008. The regime actually agreed in his meeting with the IAEA Director General at the time, Mr. Mohammad al-Baradei, that they can interview Mohsen Fakhrizadeh, who was a top nuclear scientist of Iran. And a date was actually set in early September 2008. The IAEA team was in Iran to conduct that interview and other interviews. Yet, because they had this plan ahead of them, they canceled all of that. They took a totally different route. They rebuffed the IAEA at will. So it doesn't matter what they promise. It doesn't matter who promises it, because at that time it was Khamenei. You can't go higher than Khamenei, who agreed to do all of these things, and they just rebuffed all of that. So I wouldn't count at all on promises of inspectors coming to Iran. It means absolutely nothing, given the track record. And what was the second part of the question?
The idea of shifting enrichment outside of the country's borders. Well,
the inside Iran, obviously, there shouldn't be. When it comes to enrichment outside of Iran, first of all, you have to understand that inside Iran, there should be no enrichment capability. You cannot put on pause the extensive capability the regime has and say, okay, for now we're going to have enrichment outside of the country. No, we're talking about closing down the entire enrichment capability and all of the other nuclear sites of Iran. This is very different than having also some enrichment outside of the country. Look, this is we're getting into the 6th round of the talks, okay? It started several months ago. And where are we standing right now? Nowhere, okay? There's been absolutely no progress in the past several months. The whole purpose and the whole design and the effort by the Iran regime is to actually buy time, okay? They want to drag it. Every single day that Tehran can drag it, it benefits them. Because there is a deadline. Come October of this year, the mechanism for snapback of all the previous sanctions on the Iran regime will expire in October 20th. So all they need to do is just like to drag it into October and beyond that. So one big leverage of the Western nations will be taken away, and then they have to start from scratch. So that's the whole purpose of them getting into the talks and dragging and playing games and all of that. So I would keep the focus on, the stated policy of the United States was to, no enrichment capabilities, no development of nuclear weapons in the country. Okay? Any other questions? Please, yes. And then we go there.
Sorry, you were mentioning about the number of people that work for an Ahmad plan. Do you have any estimate about how many people are working in the Kavir plan? And do you know what are the countries that are providing components to the Iranian regime in order to conduct these researches?
Well, certainly, we don't know the exact number of people who are actually working on the Kavir Plan because we only know the parts that we have discovered so far. Our assessment is that the Kavir Plan is more expansive than what we already know. But the sites that we talked about, the places that we talked about, certainly are more than 400 people that they had in the beginning. And also remember, this is a very secretive part of the project of the Iran regime. We mentioned, for instance, part of this plan is Semnan, that there are several buildings there that the Sepand experts are either regularly stationed there or regularly traveling there. The same situation in Shahrud. It's a huge facility there, several kilometers by several kilometers. And then, you know, the headquarters in Sepand in Tehran. We're definitely talking about a large number of people involved in the development of nuclear weapons under the Kavir Plan. Now, in terms of the countries helping them, obviously there are usual suspects that you can see involved there. But remember, the regime has created a lot of the expertise in camouflaging their program. They have these front companies that they use to buy expertise, material, and parts for different parts of the program from countries in the region, and also, you know, from China, Russia, and others are part of it. They don't necessarily do it in a direct, overt way, but they use covers to benefit from their expertise. Please.
Do you have an estimate how much money the regime has spent on this plan, on Kavir Plan?
Well, the Kavir Plan obviously is the core of the you know, the new plan, the new core of the nuclear weapons program of the Iran regime. But let me tell you about the whole program, the money they spent. Based on our estimate from various sources, we compiled at least $2 trillion. That's $2,000 billion the regime has spent over the past 3 decades on the development of their nuclear weapons program. And this is a huge amount of money. Just to give you an idea, the revenue that the Iran regime got from oil since the time that the mullahs came to power, since 1979 until today, that's 46 years, the total revenue based on official figures put out by OPEC and other sources is no more than $1.5 trillion. So the money that the regime has spent is far greater than all the oil revenue that the regime has gotten. And you can imagine the level of destruction that is put on the people of Iran, on the whole country. No wonder that 80% of the Iranian population live below the poverty line in Iran. Thank you for your question. Any other questions? Please. Okay, you were first, and then I'll come to you.
Thank you very much. It's Said Shah from the Pakistan Daily.
Yes.
As you mentioned that with your efforts, with your organization efforts back in 2003, Iranians, they were bound to change their strategy, or they removed their sites, or something like that. The question is, we have seen, it's a brief timeline when US and Iran, they were in talks, things were very close. It was predicted like something close to some nuclear agreement. So in between, after the US withdrawal, we have seen number of their leaders, they got killed, their nuclear scientists, their one of the general and many others. And at the moment, you are also exposing, you have brief details about the recent changes in Iranian strategy. So do you think so at the same time when nuclear talks are going on, and at the same time there are threats of strikes on Iranian sides from the Israel, and US is continuously halting Israel to do that. So is that worth it? At the same time, dialogues are going on and threats of strikes are there. As you also said, we will not encourage any foreign boots on ground. So do you think so, like threats and strikes that will work to ultimately eliminate this program?
Well, first of all, you know, this is not the first time that there are negotiations going on between Iran and foreign counterparts. It started in 2003. At that time, it was EU3 dealing with Iran. And actually, honestly, the program was in the earlier stages. There was a big chance for halting the whole program. Instead, the EU3 decided to basically legitimize the program and provide concessions. And then in 2010, 2010-11, the nuclear talks again started, led to the 2015 JCPOA agreement that at the core of it was the legitimization of the enrichment program of Iran. All of the nuclear sites of Iran were left intact, including the underground facility in Fordo, saying, okay, just keep the centrifuges there, but don't feed them with uranium hexafluoride, just air, feed them with air. Well, look, this is where they're reaching uranium 60%, which is just one screwdriver's turn away from getting weapons-grade uranium. So the goal has, we have always said that there has to be a decisive policy by the West. Hold them accountable for their violations. Don't give them concessions. Don't give them money and resources. Don't legitimize a program that is meant to build the bomb. And that's the policy that we continue to suggest. We have said in the past that there is no need for boots on the ground, no needs for appropriating money or any of those. The people of Iran are the same way that they're exposing the nuclear sites of Iran, the same way they're engaged in protests inside the country, the same way they will do what is necessary to bring down the Ayatollahs. All the West need to do is to recognize the legitimacy of those on the ground who are confronting the Revolutionary Guards and nothing beyond that. Thank you so much. I think we had a question right here, please.
Thank you. I'm Dan Friedman with Mother Jones. My question is, can you talk about how you hope to influence the administration currently toward a policy that more like what you seem to be advocating, if that is true, and how might you go about changing their push for a deal in the near future? And are there parts of the administration that are more open to the arguments you're making right now?
Thank you so much for your question. You know, our role as the Iranian resistance as the parliament in exile is basically to put out information, put out the truth, because out there you have a regime that is master of deception and lies, and they constantly 24/7 are disseminating misinformation and disinformation, both about their own nature, their own activities, but about their policies and all of that. Our position has always been the same, no matter who has been in the White House. We have said the same things, you know, during when we had a Democratic administration or Republican administration, and look at the nuclear revelations we have done in the past. Regardless of who was in the White House, we have done our work. So our job, I mean, the most powerful element is actually information. It's just our job is responsibility is to put out information, show them to the direction of the truth and the information, but also making them understand the mentality of the mullahs, which is part of the information itself, you know, where they're heading, how they're looking at things, what their policies are. And the rest, of course, you know, we can't make decisions for them. The rest is up to them, what policies they want to pursue. Of course, we have always suggested that the only policy that would be effective would be a firm policy, a decisive policy in dealing with the regime. We have learned it through experience ourselves in dealing with the regime. The only way that the movement has survived, not only survived, but has expanded and has become the alternative to the mullahs, and has all the abilities that you've seen, is that we stood firm against the mullahs since day one. We had no illusions about the moderation of the mullahs, which has been, you know, part and parcel of the policy in the West for many years. And we believe in the power of the people of Iran. And we suggest any administration here or in Europe would pursue the same principles. Thank you so much.
Can I just have a quick follow-up?
Yeah, please, yes.
When did you find out about this Kavir Plan? Is this a very recent revelation, or is it something you've known about for a little bit of time?
No, this is actually relatively new, because actually some of the elements of this plan we revealed in the past few months, but we did not know it was part of a larger plan. We just came to the full picture based on the new information that we got from inside Iran, that these are not isolated sites or isolated activities, even though they were all related to the nuclear weapons, but they're actually part and parcel of a new plan known as the Kavir Plan. So this picture and understanding and the information about the Kavir Plan is new. Any other questions? Anybody has had online questions? Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. This is Claire Lopez, Lopez Liberty. With the understanding now that this entire set of sites is part of the Kavir Plan now, do you have any other information about deadlines? You know, how soon do they expect all of these pieces to come together with a deliverable nuclear weapon? For example, the Ahmad plan projected 5 nuclear bombs by whatever date. How about the Kavir plan? Do we have that for that plan?
Thank you, Claire, for asking the question. I don't have a timeline, specific timeline that the regime has allocated to be able to build a bomb. But keep in mind, building nuclear weapons takes many, many years, because it's not just the enrichment, which by itself you need to perfect it, but also is the weaponization, all of the tests that you need to do over the years in order to get to the point. The information that we have and all of the information that has come out, not just by us, but just look at the recent IAEA report, indicates that in all of the 3 areas necessary for building a bomb, A, the fissile material, B, weaponizing it or building the actual nuclear warhead, and C, the delivery system, the Iran regime has pretty much done all of the tests needed, all of the necessary steps to be taken, and it doesn't really take much of a time for you to, especially with the amount of over 400 kilograms of 60% enriched uranium. And the fact that the IAEA has said in their report that there are missing, material, so that the, information, the material that they have had. Let me just go back to the question that you raised about the 400 kilograms of highly enriched uranium. That 400 kilograms is way enough for over almost a dozen nuclear weapons, the fissile material that is needed for that. It doesn't take much time, less than a month, definitely, and you don't need a large facility. All of that could be done in very, very small places that we only know the enrichment sites that we know. It could be a very small facility with a few advanced centrifuges, not very expansive, not Natanz. You don't need a Natanz to enrich them further from 60% to weapons grade. So that's why time is of essence. You shouldn't wait. No one should wait until you get the news that the Iran regime already has the bomb, because that's the worst case scenario. And there is an opportunity for the whole world to act in time. There is an opportunity to halt the program right now. I urge the US administration to use the opportunity now at the negotiations to hold to their position, the stated policy of the United States, that there has to be no enrichment capability whatsoever, that the entire nuclear program must be shut down, and the Iran regime cannot have developed nuclear weapons, period. With the level of advancement they have had, You cannot just talk and negotiate and get some promises. It will only further move the needle forward. You want to stop that. Now is the time to do it. Any other questions? Yes, please.
Hi, Alana Peters with Newsmax. Given Iran's claim that its nuclear program is peaceful, contrasted with your assertion of weapons development, how does this tension impact the credibility and enforcement of the Nuclear Proliferation Treaty? And how do you see this new information shaping future policy decisions regarding this treaty?
Well, knowing the nature of the mullahs in Tehran, no matter what evidence you present, they continue to say the same lies, the same things, maintain their position that their program has always been peaceful and remains peaceful, when even the IAEA, with limited access, after years of investigation, they say that they have been working on the development of nuclear weapons, on weaponizing the things, all the tests that they have done, none of which are for peaceful purposes. None of those tests that the regime has been doing was for building energy, making energy, wiping out those buildings and traces of places that they have. This is not part of building a nuclear energy program. Every single action that they have done so far is opposite to the peaceful nuclear program, including enriching uranium to 60%, which is not at all needed. It's only needed for building the bomb. So I think this information today just adds to what we had done before, but I think it will make people understand that even for those who had some doubts about the nature of the program, or were counting on the Ahmad plan to be shelved, back in 2004, to understand that there is a new, more advanced, more enhanced, escalated program plan known as Kavir Plan. I hope that is taken into consideration. Any other questions? Did you have online questions? Yes.
Yes, we do.
A question from Joshua Klein from the Breitbart News. With nuclear talks at a critical point, Iran's Ahmad Khatami, in a recent Friday prayer sermon, admitted that MEK resistance units could achieve, quote unquote, a swift overthrow. Given the regime's economic collapse, inflation, power outages, and protests, do these crises make a US deal more likely? Beyond that, Khatami's remark also reveals Iran's vulnerability. Should the international community back uprisings and tighten sanctions to remove the regime and its nuclear threat? Would this be the most effective path forward?
Well, thank you so much for Josh Klein posing the question. Certainly, I think where the U.S. administration or anyone who's negotiating with the Iran regime look at Iran as a whole, not just the regime, because Iran is a country of 85 million population, a vast majority of them opposed to this regime, as witnessed in the protest in all 31 provinces of the country, but the fact that there is an organized resistance who has been fighting the regime, wanting to bring down the mullahs. He asked about the resistance units inside Iran. These are the part and parcel of the same entity that exposes actually the nuclear sites of Iran, the MEK, that they are confronting the Revolutionary Guards on a daily basis, showing the people of Iran that the regime is not 10 feet tall, that they are vulnerable, that the centers of repression are being targeted by these young people, even though many of them have been arrested, but many more have joined. And they have maintained the culture of resistance against the regime, showing the world that the prospect for change is actually imminent. Now, what Ahmad Khatami, the regime's official, has said is actually true, that the main preoccupation, the main concern for the regime on a day-to-day basis is the role of these resistance units whose goal is to bring down the mullahs. The regime knows about its vulnerability, knows that when dictators collapse, it doesn't necessarily take a very long time. Look at Syria, look at Assad, who seemed to be invincible just 11 days before he fell, and suddenly the whole thing collapsed. And Assad is not an isolated example. He was the biggest ally of Tehran. He was kept in power by the Iranian regime, and yet the fall of Assad is a clear indication of the weakness of the regime in the region, but also inside the country. So this is the new reality that I think the administration or anyone dealing with Iran has to take into account. Look at how Tehran looks at its opposition. What is their concern? On a day-to-day basis, they talk about the resistance. In every Friday prayer, including in that speech that Ahmad Khatami made, at the Friday prayer, including the recent speech that Khamenei, Supreme Leader, made last week, there were 3 chants at the, from the podium by the regime: death to America, death to Israel, death to the MEK. Clearly showing that the #1 concern inside the country for the regime is the MEK, that is not only active outside of Iran, exposing information, but most importantly, inside the country.
Question. This is from Todd Wood from CD Media. 2 questions Todd has. First, does the Iranian public support the regime's nuclear weapons program? And number 2, have Iran's air defenses been reconstituted since the Israeli attack?
Well, in terms of the public, the public are vehemently opposed to the nuclear weapons program of the Iran regime because they realize that the nuclear weapons program is to the detriment of the people of Iran. It further prolongs the rule of the mullahs. It drains the resources of the country. I mentioned $2 trillion was spent, which is higher, about 25% higher than all the oil revenue that was generated under the mullahs in the past 46 years. And that's why and that's how we get our information. We rely on the network inside Iran. It's not a scoop. We have been consistently able, based on the network we've had on the ground in Iran, to expose these nuclear sites, is primarily because of the popular support that our movement has, and also the trust that the people have in us and not the regime and their opposition to the nuclear program. Now, in terms of the air defense system of the Iranian regime, I don't know exactly, what they actually have, what they haven't, what they don't have, what damage they have faced. But let me tell you, in general, this regime is in trouble. Their military is not as powerful as they claim. Remember, they were boasting for years about the power of their proxies in the region. Yet, look at the situation right now. Assad, Hezbollah, the Houthis, the Shia militias in Lebanon, you name it, all over the region. These are the ones who were funded, trained, armed by the Iranian regime, yet they have been badly disseminated. So the same situation exists inside the country. And they are in disarray, they are vulnerable, and therefore the weakness of the regime we talk about is not just in terms of the people opposing it, but also their inability to protect the regime. Any other questions?